Episode 12 of the Monday Morning Worship Leader, 43 Folders, Part 1.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures give us glory. Praise Him, all Lord. Praise Him, because praise Him above. Praise Him above. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Brother John here, and it's Sunday afternoon, evening, and it's good to be talking to you today. It was a great service today, and great times were had. But you know, Sunday is one of those interesting days that most people don't realize that it's an amalgamation. It's this putting together of an entire week or perhaps month or perhaps years of work, putting things together, getting it all organized, getting it all lined up perfectly. And it requires, on the worship leader's part, an organizational skill. And sometimes we come to a worship leader position, especially musicians who are definitely right-brain thinkers. We come to it and maybe we're not the most organized. I was not the most organized when I came into worship leading. In fact, it was about 25 years ago, and I will never forget it. I was in my first full-time position at a church as a worship leader. Been there a couple of years, and things were going very well, and we were getting ready for a big Christmas program. And in this big Christmas program, and by the way, let me step back and tell you that I got a little bit of money every year to go to some conference, usually a music reading session like at Ridgecrest or something like that. Ridgecrest, back in the day, Southern Baptists always went to either Ridgecrest or Glorietta, and we would get together and we'd read new pieces of music together. We would hear conferences. I would always go to those. Those were really important to me, and that will play out in the moment in this conversation. But it was about 25 years ago. It was really close to Christmas, and I was really unorganized. My desk was a mess, and before I start sounding like I'm harping on messy desks, remember that the absence of chaos is not the presence of order. I've seen very clean desks from people who are very cluttered in their mind anyway. But all of that to say, I was a pretty unorganized person. And it was almost like a badge of honor to me to be a little unorganized. But what happened was it got in the way of ministry. We were going to do this one piece with a track. Most of the rest of the pieces we were doing with live music. But one piece the choir was going to do for Christmas, and our big Christmas concert was with a track. And you know how thin CDs are.
1.2 millimeters thick.
Well, somewhere around my messy desk, the CD got lost. The track got lost. This was at a time where you just didn't download tracks from your favorite website or anything like that. It would take 2 weeks maybe sometimes, and also it could be that they would be back ordered. Well, guess what? I couldn't find it. I tore in, and this was at a time that I did not need to be messing around in my office. I needed to be getting final preparations done. Well, long story short, I found the CD in February, not before the Christmas program. So I had to cut that piece of music. So that was a warning shot for me. And what I did was, remember how I said I would always save and go to some conference? Instead, that year I prayed about it and used my money to go to a time management conference instead. And I bought all the stuff. And ever since then, I've been a bit of a time project management wonk. I'm always trying to find a better way to do things. So when 43 folders came into my life, it was revolutionary, and this didn't happen overnight, and so I'm going to talk to you about it today and talk even more application next week. But if I were a music minister, a worship minister's life coach, whether they were volunteer, bivocational, dual ministry, full-time, I would tell them about 43 folders. This isn't a new concept. It isn't a Lifeway idea or anything like that. It's not one I created. However, it has become one of the most useful tools in my ministry. 43 folders is a David Allen concept drawn from his secular time management book called Getting Things Done. And it's based on a tickle file concept. So let me give you the construct. And then we'll talk about how it can revolutionize your productivity in your ministry. And again, what I'm hoping that you do is take today's material, start to set it up if you want to. You might have a better thing, but this is pretty good. Set it up this week, and then we could talk about application next Monday. So no, this system will save you an amazing amount of time, make you appear that you have a near flawless memory, and keep your events streamlined. So you must set this up when you regularly and where you regularly do the work. And to be effective, this practice requires your staunch commitment. I have a desk drawer with a hanging file system installed. In this hanging file, I have only 43 folders, and each folder has its own separate little hanging file holder. 12 of these are labeled with the months of the year, January through December, and the other 31 are numbered 1 through 31. And then they're organized with the current month in front, followed by the numbered folders. And so behind these folders are the other 11 monthly folders. At the end of each day, I pull tomorrow's day file out, empty the contents into my inbox or on my desk, and I peruse them as I place them there just to get an idea of what I need to do for the next day. And so I may have a time-sensitive material in there, like a birthday card, bills, or club dues, or something like that. Then I place it in my outbox, and I place the newly vacated number folder back behind the next month. And so the next day, I empty my outbox of that inbox's material, if that makes sense. So I have these folders. And every day, so for instance, when I'm doing this particular podcast, it's on April 14th. And so this morning, even though it was Sunday morning, and I will talk a little bit more about the habit that I do, I walked in and I pulled the number 14 folder out of that desk drawer, which was behind April. And I checked and emptied its contents on my desk. I did actually... Inbox, outbox, my desk is now my inbox, and I have an outbox on my door. But, I was able to just put all of that in there and take care of it. And then that takes care and empties that folder. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to throw things ahead of time in that folder that needs to be dated. So as I'm looking at it, let's talk for just a minute about this being a thought to paper assignment. So on my desk is a notepad, and when something comes to mind, a particular day, time, or event, no matter when, I'll scroll it on that pad and I'll toss it in the appropriate month. So perhaps something strikes me that I need to do for Christmas. And I put Christmas together in July. That's when I really work on making sure I've got Christmas taken care of so we can kind of go on autopilot. I'll throw it in the July folder. That's just an example. So because we all operate on a church calendar, 43 folders helps me from having to do some things over and over again or last-minute work. If, for instance, it is good to order paper stock for our hanging of the green service, and we use a different paper stock in early November, if that's a good time to order it. So I'll put a copy of the old bulletin stock from last year into the November folder. Imagine the opportunities. You can use it for a special emphasis month, Advent, Passion Plays. For instance, if I get Annie Armstrong material that I'm supposed to be using, and I'll get it like in November or December, I just chuck it into the February or March folder whenever it would best fall into place for my planning. If I get if I get Lottie Moon information, I'll put that in the November folder so I can begin planning in November for our Lottie Moon campaign. If you get DVD ROMs, something in the future, CD ROMs, or if you get anything like that, you can just put it in the folder where it's necessary. So these are a couple of concepts and ideas that you can use with 43 folders. At least you can start setting it up. Use it to catch your notes. Use it to catch your brain a little bit, and let this folder system be your second brain. Now, you can do it electronically as well, and as we go to more electronic stuff, you do need to find a catch-all system. And in a future podcast, I'll talk about this, but we're still dealing with paper. We still deal with paper a lot. And so on our next podcast, I'm going to talk about some very specific things that I do with 43 folders that helps me a lot as I get ready for planning my big services and my big programs. So that's coming up next time on the podcast. And now for a good word. Well, you know what book I'm going to talk to you about. It's Getting Things Done by David Allen. This particular book is secular, but it's very powerful. I would say it's very common sense. It's not exactly, but it helps you to organize and think through life. And I still use concepts. I've had this book for 15, 20 years. I still use concepts from this book, like 43 folders, but there are other concepts as well that I think would help you greatly in your ministry. You can find a link to Getting Things Done in the show notes. Just click that link, and that helps out the Monday Morning Worship Leader if you choose to buy that book through that link. And for the Monday Morning Worship Leader, that's it. It's so good to talk to you. Next time on the Monday Morning Worship Leader, I'm not going to do, like a closing next time kind of thing. So you just know it's part 2 of 43 folders. And what we're going to talk about, again, is some of the different things that you can do with these 43 folders in your desk. And I guarantee you, you're going to find it very helpful. But as we'll talk about, it's got to become a compulsory exercise that you do every day. All right, enough teaching, enough preaching. You have a great week, and remember, we are not rock stars. We are servants. Till next time.